Hello, welcome to next session of Polish American Innovation Bridge, a conference that this year's edition is named We Shape the World Toward a Sustainable Future. During next hour, the session will be dedicated to investors' point of view on clean tech and all startups and new technologies that are dedicated to environmental and natural resources. In this session, we have great speakers. With me is Erki Ani, CEO of CleanTech Estonia. And we have also Michał Maćkowiak, who co-founded a company that is producing electrical buses and has great experience in corporate investments in new technologies. So first of all, I would like, please introduce yourself. And first, please, Erki, introduce yourself and your institution, your fund that you are representing.
Yes. So hello to everybody from Estonia. As I think, as my company's name, CleanTech Estonia, also suggests, the CleanTech Estonia itself is it's a non-profit. It's a support organization, or kind of like an umbrella organization for cleantech startups, or mainly acting in the field of helping develop suitable policy mechanisms or support or financial mechanisms by the government for the startups. So in order to sprout more deep tech and clean tech and sustainable technologies related startups. We've been doing this since 2015 with the team. But today, as CleanTech Estonia is very Estonia specific, we have developed now also this year actually two new entities that are dealing with Europe-wide, but also a bit more larger geography scope activities towards cleantech startups. So one of them is a Beamline Accelerator, in which there's also, of course, cleantech oriented aim for getting very early stage cleantech startups and providing them with non-equity financing for the developments. And the third one is a Little Green Fund, which basically kind of says that's a little fund for cleantech and green tech startups, doing small tickets for big ambitious teams. And that's essentially what we do in Estonia. So we kind of hold the torch of finding new early stage startups from the academia or from elsewhere, from the hackathons, providing them with very early stage funding opportunities, either via grants or also equity investments or non-equity investments, convertibles and revenue-based investments, accelerating them. So we have two accelerator programs, incubation programs, hackathons, and closely in collaboration with the public sector, with the ministries, but also with larger corporates. We help startups to develop their ideas, pilot them, scale them, and then kind of enable that kind of platform for also the founders of those cleantech startups to matchmake or network with each other, as all of the cleantech startup founders usually have like one goal in their minds from day zero to make the world a better place one way or another. And by cleantech, we also categorize it under very broad themes or topics, such as, for example, novel materials, bioresources, agriculture and food, but also energy production, storage, efficiency, housing, transportation, IoT, all that kind of what enables our today's stupid technologies to turn into intelligent technologies or develop something intelligent and new and sustainable from the get-go.
That's great. Thank you. Thank you very much. So it's impressive. Please, Michał, introduce yourself and your organization.
Sure. So let me start with the fact that for a decade I've been actually involved in the largest engineering and construction company here in the region, from natural gas, oil, and also in terms of power. And we've been actually in this organization, we've been also looking for different projects and actually companies with some ideas related to renewable energy, because we've been also transforming our business towards more sustainable one. That is why I was also, in head of, of all these operations and all of these innovations, and also of let's call it like a little corporate VC stuff. And in the meantime, I have also founded myself the electric bus company within this company that I've been actually working for. So it was like an internal project, and like 1 year ago we have actually found a strategic investor, and I'm working also right now with this investor. It is called Industrial Development Agency. So this is actually the largest institution here in Poland. We call it like the right arm of Prime Minister here in Poland. But they decided actually they are supporting not only major businesses, but also they are supporting some bright ideas from CleanTech, and also from some, actually we have also companies from space area, space exploration, from electronic games, let's say. So let's say that this agency, it's kind of a fund also, but maybe with a different approach. So not like a typical fund or VC, and let's say that together right now we are in one ecosystem, and we are actually looking for solutions that we could add to the portfolio in terms of especially renewables. So we mean it by offshore, onshore, PV technologies. Also right now we've been very much involved in hydrogen and energy storage technologies that we as Industrial Development Agency, we are supporting all the projects here in Poland. We are establishing so-called hydrogen valleys right now in Poland. Right now we have like up to 5 hydrogen valleys across the whole country, where we will be trying to produce.
That's great, because tomorrow in the morning there will be a dedicated session to hydrogen technologies. So we'll hear perspective from academia, from research institutions, and from central administration. So there will be a representative of a ministry who is responsible for hydrogen.
Yes, so we are, of course, we are all working together.
Okay, so as our participants are mostly people who are inventing new technologies or are supporting as an external advisors to teams who invented technologies, for them the main question is if there is a chance for their project to be supported by investors. So my question is, what kind of projects, what areas of market potential, of technology potential are actually on the top? Yeah, what technologies are you looking for? What areas, what trends are now driving the investment sector, both VC and all the other like seed funds and accelerators? What technologies are in scope? What you are looking for now? Erki, please be first.
Yeah. Well, if we're talking about market trends, then I guess a lot of people noticed there was this huge climate conference called COP26 in Glasgow a couple of weeks ago. For me, it kind of seems that the COP26, the fact that there was actually no certain conclusions coming out of the COP, although yes, some did, but still the overall ambition kind of stayed quite lame. So that is kind of the market trend that is pushing the private sector more ambitiously into kind of tackling the problems that the public sector isn't able to solve. For example, we're talking about carbon markets. So you have the voluntary carbon markets, for example, where the CO2 quota is bought and sold. And then you have the compliance market, which is controlled by the EU ETS system. So that's like intergovernmental. And in the voluntary carbon market, there's, I think after the COP26, I work very much together with or hands-on with all the startups, and they occasionally every week pitch to us their ideas and so on. So there's been many startups that are sprouting out from this sector, and they are using or utilizing their knowledge that's might not specifically be from the environmental sector, but could be also from tech startups, which there's a lot in Estonia. So there's many tech founders and tech startups that are putting into the game, for example, cryptocurrencies or AI or machine learning, and combining that together with, at the moment, in my opinion, the most popular topic, the carbon markets. So they're either valorizing or trying to valorize the biodiversity, for example. Well, that's not that tightly connected to the carbon markets, but still, that's kind of a market that is coming due to another public policy called EU taxonomy that's being put on all the kinds of investment institutions or financial institutions for the investors, the banks, funds, etc., etc. So everybody has to comply with the ESG regulations, so environmental, social governance regulations. And then soon there's also going to be in play the kind of the biodiversity aspect, or how to valorize or value the biodiversity that the large infrastructure projects are kind of impacting. So these kind of startups are sprouting rather heavily. But also one market trend that's coming up a lot is the deep tech, or kind of putting now our mouth where our words are. So we say that we in Europe actively and very enthusiastically and a lot develop science, research and development, but now it's kind of looks like it's the time to put actually the research into commercialization and take it very seriously. So that's why also we see a great amount of new startups that are being developed from the university, from the research. And that is definitely driving that as well. But there's no specific technology that's driving that. So it's either very groundbreaking, such as, or trying to tackle the very groundbreaking problems such as we have in the energy industry. And in the energy industry, the problem for the CleanTech startups is that it's a very incumbent kind of technologies that they have to compete with. The new startups, the new innovations, they have to compete with the technologies and companies, large corporates that are either bound together with the local nations or local governments, and also in policies. So it's very tricky to bring about innovation in such topics, for example, as energy. And that's why there's a lot of innovation and developments going on.
Okay, great. Thank you. And Michał, what you see, what market trends, what technologies are in scope of interest of investors now?
So it's very much also the same what Erki said, because we are observing the same trends actually here in Poland, and since we are actually not far away from each other, but I would add maybe to what Erki said that we've seen also a strong interest and also some ideas in terms of how to use actually blockchain technologies in energy trading systems, for instance. Yes, because at least today in Poland we are growing very fast in terms of renewable energy, and I think that all the reports that you have read like 1 year ago, it's already outdated, because the pace of growth is much higher than anyone expected. So I think that we have reached already like the goal for 2025 in most of the reports from last year. So that creates, of course, some problems in terms of the grid and in terms of balance on the grid. So therefore, a lot of ideas are coming to optimize the usage of the energy, and also how to probably make money on those trends in terms of energy in off-peak or peak. scenarios. So this is something that we observe and which is very actually interesting, and but it requires a lot of specific knowledge, also some specific software. And so, but yeah, we see some good ideas actually here, and which are approaching us. And the other aspect is everything around electromobility, I would add. That of course, public transportation is one thing, but especially right now in the context of micromobility, this is also the area where there is a lot of startups trying to do something. And to be honest, I'm always fascinated about some disruptive projects that they have, because sometimes I think that actually there's nothing left to how to say, I think
to invent new.
Yeah, there's nothing more to invent, and suddenly someone comes with some idea, and it seems that actually you can still improve something in something that you didn't actually think that will happen. So this is something also which is happening here, and plus actually, as Erki said, all of this stuff, I see the same trends actually, at least in our region. So I think that's
okay. Great.
If I can add to that.
Yep.
Yeah, that's kind of a very good structure that Michał you gave, because if you think of it, then you have this kind of, it's like a whole system of demand that is creating the demand for new innovations in specific categories. For example, the time or the instance when sustainable development goals, the SDGs, were introduced, and then soon after the ESGs, the environmental social governance, for larger organizations, but also financial institutions, that pushed the companies, the corporates, the banks, the funds into looking on kind of what is their actual footprint, because now they need to know that, right? But now, if they already now know that their footprint is huge, now they're looking for solutions to mitigate that. And that's also where all the blockchain, all the AI, the machine learning, all those new technologies come into play, and that creates a huge demand on the market. And that's basically also known as the CleanTech 2.0, kind of the second coming of CleanTech, that uses the technologies that are being developed in the past by the IT sector that's booming everywhere, and now using that knowledge and intelligence in the solutions that we know that can fix the problem. But we need a lot of them, and in very different categories, that's for sure.
Okay, so you mean that it's not about packaged products, it's rather about processes and supporting IT technologies?
Yeah, I mean, in my opinion, the kind of IT technologies are kind of the enablers. Well, I mean, they are enablers for the new technologies. Could be used in various ways.
Great. Okay, so we encourage participants to ask questions through the chat. But in meanwhile, that's for me a big question, because you mentioned that IT is enabler, but normally, as we perceive the vision of VC fund or investor, it's something connected with app, with something easy IT tool that is quite easy and short to develop, easy and short to marketing, and so on. Also, most of examples of successful investments, of great examples from companies' portfolio are, for example, medical devices or IT hardware. And this CleanTech is totally different. So my question is, what are the main differences from your perspective, from perspective of an investor, of an entity supporting startups? Michał, could you please answer first?
Oh, okay. So now me first. Okay.
Yep.
So I think that it also varies in different regions, because from what I observe in Poland and in Europe, but mostly in Poland, is that clean tech technologies are not widely understood, I would say. So from my perspective, also as a founder of electric bus company, I know one thing or two. So so it is very difficult to actually present the product that you are working on, because everybody wants to touch it. They want to have some exact data, how and when you are going to sell. When I take a look at, for instance, at the US market, and I also have a lot of friends there, and the situation today is right now that you are going to NASDAQ without with some drawings actually, yes, on the paper, and suddenly you have like the evaluation of $4 billion, yes, and without selling even a prototype, yes. So I'm laughing that if I was actually selling my electric bus last year in States, then I probably would have also like 5 billion evaluation. And in Poland it didn't happen at that amount of the evaluation, of course. But yes, so I think that but combining actually this let's say hardware with some let's say things which derived from IT, so together with IoT stuff or AI together, makes things a little less difficult, yes. And from my perspective, investors are more open to that, and the best if some parts are combined. It's not only one, let's say, solution, but the solution which gives you like the doors to open other doors, with this what it's being presented. So yes. But to sum up, I think that it's still very challenging for the companies from CleanTech, at least in our region. And I hope that it will, evolve, and it's already actually evolving. But it's a process. It's a process. So I always, I'm always happy when new funds. Actually, right now, a lot of VCs or some either private families funds are being established with the focus on actually believing in those clean tech. So it is very often people who were working in some tech companies and or some clean tech companies before. So right now it's easier to discuss with these people investment case, yes, because some time ago it wasn't that easy. People were focusing on apps, softwares, SaaS, whatever, yes, and not really on some hard stuff or clean tech stuff. And right now people also are moving towards this trend, and it's getting better and better, I guess. So this is my opinion, at least what I observe here in Poland, and in terms of comparison to what is elsewhere.
Yeah, great. Thank you very much. So what is the Estonian perspective? Is it different, or how do you see it, Erki?
I think there are a couple of things that are kind of driving the let's call them traditional IT investors into clean tech and even into hardware, because maybe a couple of years back there was only very, very little interest from the IT investors or the founders that have created the tech startups, from them into investing into clean tech solutions and hardware. Now, last year or a year and a half back, we saw that trend totally flipped. I think there's a couple of reasons. Well, first one is, of course, the Estonian kind of the startup ecosystem that's getting more mature, meaning that more founders and startups are doing exits, and they have more capital available. And then if they also have kids, well, their kind of the heart says that, man, you have to invest in your future and sustainability, right? For your kids to also live in a prosperous world. That's maybe one. That's a soft topic, kind of the soft thing about it, but that's strong. That is kind of soft but strong from the founders and from the people's perspective. And that is also driving a lot of investments into clean tech. The second thing, which I see, is that the public policy, or the kind of the government and the nations, have come a bit closer to its people by the fact, or because of climate change. Climate change is a topic that you cannot go around. Everywhere you go, you see the same topics. Either it's still kind of zero waste, or a lot of trash on the streets, or polluting cars. Everything impacts our kind of awareness and understanding of our environment where we are living. Either it's in a city or in a forest, which is being cut down, etc., etc. And then the policy kind of regulations are more out there as well, saying that what the governments will do, what are their plans to do, how do they, and that kind of brings into the point that how the governments and the public policies enable to de-risk those novel, innovative solutions that the governments and the world is saying that the world is their playground in the future. So essentially meaning that all the technologies that are being developed, that's like for sure that it cannot be a polluting one anymore. The ones that win are going to be the most sustainable, either circular economy or most energy efficient, or something totally innovative, like novel materials, novel solutions. And this is the thing that investors like. You like to go with a trend if you see that the trend is strong. I mean, we're saying that, TikTok, the time is ticking, the world is burning and flooding, right? If everybody says that the topic is strong, the consumers know how to demand it from their suppliers. Consumers meaning the people, suppliers meaning groceries, gasoline stations, etc., etc. So they demand more sustainability because they don't want to pollute themselves as well. They're getting more and more aware, and this kind of I think that public policy is kind of providing more platform for accelerators, funds to develop that are dealing with sustainability, like as the only topic. Of course, there's funds that are dealing with many topics, and cleantech being one of them. But usually also these funds that are kind of generalists, doing blockchain, IT, crypto, machine learning, AI, etc., and cleantech. They typically regard those their investment objects still as SaaS and B2B, so software as a service and B2B models. But in fact, the things that are said that we need innovation in and that are thriving or giving the most effect for the future economies are the things that, as Michał said, you can actually touch, right? You can go, you can touch those physical, tangible things. Either it's hydrogen production, hydrogen generators, hydrogen fuel cells, solar panels, floating solar panels, flying solar panels, whatever. The means that we produce energy and how we do that. And this is getting so more closer. I mean, the world is getting smaller anyway, by day. But now the cleantech is getting tighter to the people, to the investors, to the public sphere, to the companies, and people know how to demand it. Everybody knows it. If you're a smart investor, you know that if you put money in cleantech, in de-risked cleantech, meaning that public funds are also putting their money in order to de-risk the investors' money, then you're a smart investor.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, do you have, Michał, something to add to this?
No, I actually totally agree with Erki, and I can only say that this is a very important aspect that he said in terms of the sustainability today, because definitely if you want to actually get the interest of the investors today, you have to have the most sustainable product and vision as possible, actually, and this is very important. So
the technology do not need to be directly clean tech. The important is that it is sustainable. That is its unique value proposition is one of the main points is sustainability.
Of course, clean tech as a clean tech, but but sustainable clean tech, whatever we call it. But especially in terms of material or how we see, for instance, materials today for batteries, for cells for the batteries. Yes, so you see this competition today in Europe for the most sustainable gigafactory in Europe. Yeah, the one in Sweden, the other in Spain, the other in Italy, and everybody is claiming that they will have the most sustainable production of cells, or later on even fuel cells in the world. Yes, and whether it's of course a fact or a myth, this is the other issue. Yeah, but without that, you will not actually get any. Okay, maybe you will get interest, but in the end of the day, you will also have to fund it with some financial institutions at the end of the day. And since financial institutions are right now backing up mostly clean technologies or sustainable technologies, then this is actually a must. Yeah.
Okay, I got it. So my question is, my hypothesis is that now the SaaS model is not so popular, rather the B2B and technological. Yeah, so the most investors are looking for technologies that are making old technologies more sustainable. And from this perspective, my question is that the investments are more connected with corporate VCs. So there should be a deep knowledge in such technology, in hard technology, to understand this innovation. Or is it technology? This technology does not have so much impact. Yeah. So in the investor, there have to be strong maturity in this technology, or it's not compulsory.
So let me get it first. I think that in terms of corporate VCs, or actually in terms of relationship between big organizations and startups, at least here in Poland, what I can say is that big organizations today in Poland, they are not disruptive at all. And they need startups, so-called startups, let's say, or startup projects, because otherwise they are simply too slow, and there is, too much, of course, some, politics or paperwork, even, this kind of stuff. Yes, and this is very difficult. So this is actually good for the startup ecosystem, of course, because it doesn't matter whether you have like 2, 5, or 10 people in your team. What matters is your actually idea and what you are working on, and you can easily be at the same stage with the big players with billions of revenues. Yes, because at the end of the day, they will need you, of course, for their transition of the business. And since most of those companies are like dinosaurs, also coming from not sustainable businesses, actually. Yes, related not only to fossil fuels, but also related to chemistry, but in chemistry the same. They are using, let's say, gray hydrogen, and they need to use green, because otherwise they will be out of supply chain of other final let's say customers. So and this is the actually opportunity, but it, of course, from my perspective, it depends on the approach of the organization, because in our organization, what we have even right now in the development agency approach, or we had in my previous company, the approach is that we are actually helping these ideas to grow. We are taking, we've been, and right now we're also taking teams with the founders, because this is the founder who needs to run it. Of course, we are giving him the whole backup, in terms of to make him feel safe, and so he is not disrupted by discussions with the accountants. Yes, but so he needs this support, but what he needs is to feel safe, and so that we are giving him the right tools actually to grow his idea and to grow his business, which is not always the case, of course. Yes, because sometimes even if the approach is, let's say, good, and you want really to take this startup and raise this like a child. Yes, sometimes it's not possible because the organization is simply not ready for that and probably will never be.
That's important what you are saying, that companies that are more in need of sustainable technologies are more like dinosaurs. So they are big, stable companies, and it's really hard for them to cooperate with startups, which have totally different culture, different risk approach, and so on.
And it's not ending with success, unfortunately. But there is a lot of
do you have
examples.
any examples of such cooperation? Let's say successful and unsuccessful.
I actually have my own example. As right now we have main investor in my electric buses, the development agency. So, and this is exactly the approach that I said. This is of course more like a fund, as I said. It's not like a big entity like oil and gas company or whatever. But still, it has a lot of entities from different markets, and the approach is actually this what I said, so that you are helping the company with the whole ecosystem. You are actually not imposing some problems on this company. You are not expecting that in 2 months you will achieve Mount Everest. Yes, because of course it's not possible, and I think that in my perspective, we've been given a lot of credit of trust, and we are only supported with all the tools that the agency has, and this is good. But as I said, this is a good example, but I also know some bad examples. But,
so
let's not talk about it.
Yeah, thank you. That's your personal experience. That's great. And Erki, what is your perspective? Yeah, what are the main challenges, and how do you deal with these challenges in Estonia to cooperate between big companies that are they have big pollution with startups who would like to enter clean technologies?
I mean, there's not too many big companies in Estonia, right?
Right.
That even makes it a bit maybe easier for the
that's what I want to say. That you are open for global economy. We are in Poland. Trust that 38 million people is enough market for us. That's all what we need.
Yeah, this is the case.
You have totally different perspective. Yeah, could you elaborate on this?
Yeah, just that is why in Estonia you have, I don't know, like already 3 unicorns or more, and in Poland we are still waiting for the first, I guess. So this is the approach.
That's true.
Yeah, we have 7 unicorns.
Sorry.
Right now.
Oh, really?
Even better.
That's impressive.
Yes, but yeah, some people do argue that I as well that there's actually like 6. But it depends how you look at what's kind of the perspective. But then again, looking at the corporates or the large businesses or the big businesses in Estonia, most, if not all, of the larger companies that are dealing with energy or resources and so on, they have already established their own innovation team or innovation departments. I guess that's kind of similar to also Michał and any other larger corporate and company. That's like the first logical step. The second one will be, of course, to set up your own kind of portfolio or a fund, right? Innovation fund. Usually you invest like maybe 30% or a quarter into startups, another quarter into stocks, and another quarter into your own kind of traditional technology developments or efficiency increase, and so on. So kind of like an innovation fund for corporates. But in order to utilize this and kind of use this fund, let's call it, into startups, then of course the corporate has to have their own kind of deal flow source. And this deal flow source, the entity, it could be also us, for example, CleanTech Estonia or some other entities. We kind of validate the ideas that could be fit for the corporates. I mean, there's a huge corporation in the world. Sorry, I'm bouncing from one topic to another. Forget what I just said. Let's take another one. There's a company called Plug and Play. So Plug and Play is the world's largest accelerator program that is intended to find startups on one level. Like there's thousands and thousands of startups. And then you have those partners as corporates. And these corporates are actively engaged in, so they have their innovation managers, and they're actively engaged in different patches of the Plug and Play. So they have accelerated cohorts. So you have energy topic, tons of startups are invited there. There's going to be short listings, more short listings, and then they'll be brought together with the corporate partners or the corporate VCs or the innovation managers. And then the corporates are going to, handpick one and say that, okay, we're going to deal and we're going to pilot with you. This is like the ideal scenario of how the new startup innovations are, how are they getting deployed in the market. So with a corporate, they can, pilot and test and then scale if they don't get locked down into the corporate system, right? Because that is also super important, because startups, that's like startups' blood, is that you deal with your own topics yourself. You develop your product, you develop it to one customer, not to one customer, but for many applications, so that it could be deployed by many other customers. Meaning that if you enter a corporate VC or a corporate accelerator or a fund, then you're kind of automatically latched into their problems, like their very specific problem, which might not be a bad thing, but might not be a good thing as well. So that might inhibit the development of the startups, their progress and potential for the future investment rounds, etc., and scaling. But if it's a very decent corporate and they know what they're doing, then of course that partnership is the thriving and the driving force behind the new innovation that could have a huge impact. So yeah, in my opinion, there's different ways on how you can look at it, and that's why you need to know there has to be a trust, absolutely, as also was brought here before, and as Michał previously mentioned, the vision that we kind of skipped fast, but Michał mentioned the vision. So yes, the vision of the founders, of actually any startup founders, is super important, but also for the CleanTech founders to vision that their product, but also the outcome or the impact of their product can be and has to be scaled, and that has to be kind of between your ears at all times. Either you're dealing alone or with corporate partners.
Great. Yeah, so it's a really important point for founders of new technologies, that they have to bear in mind this scaling up. Yeah, so it's not enough, even in B2B segment, it's not enough to serve one company, to make a sustainable process. It's important to do it agile, to serve many different processes in different companies. Yeah, that's what you mean.
Yeah. I think that's because usually when we I'm gonna finish that. So usually when we hear for startups pitches, then they usually don't start with the sentence that Estonian energy company has a huge problem and we are going to come to solve that, right? So what you usually hear is, which might not be good as well, the world is burning, and in this specific sector, this material cannot be used anymore, so we are providing an alternative, right? So something like more broader, not that specific for a company. I think that's my point.
So more broader is more attractive. That's what you mean?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it cannot be a startup if it only has one customer, right? Or one kind of market. Startup has to be scalable. That's in the genetics.
Yeah, that's why I just wanted to add that startup actually needs to also pick up the potential investor very wisely, because sometimes it's better to even have less funding, but with investor who actually understands you and understand what Erki said, that you have to scale up not only with the one customer, and it's better than to take like 10 times more money, but then you're limited, and probably in 1 year you will be out of the company anyway, because they will just take your company and fire you, and there are different stories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So one thing that is maybe not obvious for founders is to bear in mind the scalability of the business. What are else mistakes or misunderstanding that founders do in their pitches in front of investors and promoting their technologies? What examples could you give?
I think it very much depends on the investors, because typically today still startups do need to address the problem as the kind of first outlying thing. I mean, that's for any startup, but still for the CleanTech startups, usually, as I mentioned before, they start with the global, everything is burning and flooding. That's the kind of the problem. So that's maybe one mistake from the startups. So don't address like the global problems. You're not going to solve them all anyway. Just start with a very specific problem, and then also pay kind of very much attention to what to write on your slides and what to say. Either if you have any kind of a VC or an investor in front of you, and you start talking about megatons of CO2 equivalents and so on, right? What the hell does that mean? Nobody actually grasps it or understand how much is a kilogram of a CO2, right? Or whatever, because you gotta still talk the numbers like in the economical sense. If you can put the price tag on the CO2 equivalents, that's great. But you still gotta kind of explain them. What is it that is kind of your unique selling point? What is it that you are tackling? Why hasn't it done before? And how can you do it in the future? I mean, maybe the technology that couldn't be deployed in the past is now cheaper. If we're talking about solar, the solar prices have just plummeted, just simply plummeted during the past decade. So now everything is possible to do with solar, and these things that enable your products and processes to be put into the play. But still, my kind of first suggestion would be that don't try to solve the global climate crisis. Concentrate on the topic that your product or solution is addressing. Well, that's obvious. But then also bring in some hardcore investment facts and investment kind of scenarios that the investor is actually coming to listen to. And if you can back it up with public policy developments and regulations that are going to be put on this sector that you are tackling the problem in, that's even better. So if you say that single-use plastics are going to be banned, but my product isn't single-use plastic, that's going to substitute them, right? Or my system or solution for the supermarkets to lose the single-use plastics fees and everything. So kind of bring the background also on what is driving the market that you are developing your product in.
Great, thank you. Michał, your comments on what to do, what to not do during presenting your invention in front of investor?
Yeah, so if I was supposed to give some advice, Erki said actually, very important stuff. So I can only say that he's the specialist. So this is exactly, if somebody is listening for startups, so you have to listen to Erki, because these are actually the things that I would also mention. So of course, unique selling point, obviously, and why are you different from what is already on the market? Yes, and of course, what are the hard facts in terms of how you are gonna actually make money? Yes, so those are like the three things which are crucial. What I would add is that for me, what I would suggest is also to focus on the team that you have, because if you are really able to have the strong team from the project or industry that you are working on, it really adds a lot of credibility already at the start to your startup, actually. So this is it. So the background of the funding partners, it's very important. And what I would say is that before you go to any VC or whatever, any investor, I think that every startup actually should check who are they actually talking to, because if they should screen it actually, because it's very often the situation where startups think that they will talk to everyone the same stuff in the same way, but suddenly in some funds or investor side, there's really like a specialist in some, let's say, project or area, and then they will eat you after one sentence actually. So for me, it is actually very, very important to know who is on the other side of the table, because then you can actually have this proper conversation, or maybe you can also find some common ground. Maybe the same people, or maybe you have been working on something to get together before. It always gives you the comfort of having the discussion at the beginning. So maybe I think that would be it. I would add this to what Erki said. But
great, thank you very much. So my next question is regarding cooperation with academia. What examples could you give? Because our conference is dedicated to disruptive technologies, which are mostly coming from academia. And what are your experiences in cooperation between corporates and between accelerators with academia? Erki, could you please elaborate this?
Yes, my experiences are great. I mean, the best startups from our portfolio have sprouted from academia, either from local but also from abroad. But it very much depends. I mean, okay, let's take it down a notch or back a notch. If there's research being developed in a university or a research kind of department or an institution, they rarely assess the economical benefits of it to the society, to the environment, to the economy. Meaning that most of the research that is being done is being written, and then it's that, right? So that's a good thing. Don't get me wrong, because that could be in the future used by another scientist or another kind of entrepreneurial scientist that could take that into account and then develop their product. But the thing is here that who is the fastest, right? So, and who is the fastest kind of scientist? I'm not saying that the scientists have to be entrepreneurs, but if you're a deep tech startup or coming from the research, then you gotta be a scientist to be an entrepreneur, and vice versa as well, right? So, meaning that the scientists don't have to be the entrepreneurs. However, we as taxpayers are betting our life and our money, taxes, on the science in order for that to make our lives better. Otherwise, there wouldn't be any point of paying taxes at all, right? So you gotta kind of believe in that system, and then the government and the academia, they have to deliver, which is not the case in Estonia at the moment. Let's see, hope for the future years as well. But I guess that's kind of the overarching problem in Europe. I know it's better in US West Coast at least. But if there are some rock stars from the science that also do life and science, then they understand that their research development and science if that has a huge potential in helping in any way the future of their topic, their sector, either it's hydrogen, for example, which is a super high deep tech, and they understand that today that might not be too much doable because of the price tag. But if you further develop, you can also raise public funds, grants, and on top of that, the investor grants, in order to get it scalable, because the grants won't get your business or your science scalable. Only if you enter the venture capital world, then that will be. And if there are those kind of entrepreneurs or / scientists, then these are the best ones. I don't know if I answered your question, but I like that quite a lot.
Yeah, that's great to hear that there are many good examples. Michał, your perspective?
From my perspective, it's getting better in Poland. It's still not, I don't think it's, I think it's still a lot of work to be done in terms of this cooperations, but yeah, me personally, I had successful implementation of some academia cooperation, so I cannot, I can't bother, but typically, in Polish system, a lot of academia and institutions are focusing actually on getting grants, so they can, make a research for another 3 or 5 years. But the fact is that if they want to collaborate with the business, it means that they don't have 3 to 5 years. They have maybe like 3 to 5 months, actually, because then the market is gone and they are actually useless after that. So I think that it needs to change a lot, actually, because typically what I can see is that there is a lot of money being thrown away to do actually some research, and which at the end of the day nobody actually use, because it's already too late for this kind of breakthrough even research. Yes, so yeah, so that is it. And of course I wish also to have it more in a way like in US, because in US it's really like it's in the way that I really would like it to be. So whenever you are taking the university or some institution or any science, let's say, side to your business, either in cooperation or they are just your subcontractors, whatever, they are really working very fast, because they understand totally that you have to make business. Yes, and of course if you make business, then they will make business with you, because very often you have like sometimes some common patents together, when not only the company can earn money, but also the science and the university also have some profits later out of that, and they can be stronger, they can deliver more machinery to the institutes, and they can actually grow. So I would really like to have also in Europe and in Poland this kind of model. I think that it will take some time, hopefully not so long, but let's see.
Yeah, I'd just like to add, so if we're talking about science-based startups, and in particular in CleanTech, so the academia is definitely playing a huge role, but not only in the sense that there's research being commercialized, but also in the fact that if somebody not from the academia has developed a product or a service, then the science could be kind of embedded into that, right? So backing it up, making it more efficient, and so on. These kind of two things have to be understood as well. That it can go both ways. Usually, these that have the product or service, these are kind of larger organizations or companies that can afford, buying in the research and development services. But it could be also from the startups perspective, because the people behind startups, they usually think, well, it's bad to say, but outside of the box. And then if you combine outside of the box thinking, kind of innovative and imaginary technologies with science, and you can prove that by science that it can be done, then you have something in there.
Great. Thank you very much. We are at the end of our session. So thank you, Erki. Thank you, Michał. To sum up, I think the main points was that it's really important to have focus on exact market, not too narrow, not one company, but too wide, not to solve the global problems at once. So that's very important, and I see that there is a huge potential for business academia cooperation, but it demands more entrepreneurial approach by the scientists and more science approach from entrepreneurs. So thank you again very much.
And stay true to your beliefs, and it will be good.
Great. Yeah, we as organizers are forcing this, and hopefully all of the sessions will give a small foot in front to get to this goal. Great. So thank you again very much.
Thank you.
See you next time. Bye.
Ciao.